A very good afternoon. I, CHR Misha, extend a very warm convivial welcome to the dignitaries on today's ICAI Global Virtual Seminar on Ethical Challenges in Emergence of New Technology. Drawing onto an economic theory, cultural lag thesis, an inherent conflict is proposed between the rapid speed of modern technological advances and the slower speed by which ethical guidelines for utilization of new technologies are developed. Reasons for cultural lag by which ethical guidelines for utilization of new technologies are developed. So reasons for cultural lag between technology and ethics include the social structure and market condition under which each are developed. So technology today is evolving at such a rapid pace, enabling faster change and progress, causing an acceleration of the rate of change until eventually it will become exponential. So, however, it is not only technology trends and top technologies that are evolving. A lot more has changed last year due to the outbreak of COVID-19, making the professional realize that we have to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So, how to identify ethical implementation of new technology vis-a-vis provisions of code of ethics and potential threats to professional ethics and applying related safeguards in digital environment is a matter to ponder for. To bridge the gap between both today, the Ethical Standard Board of ICAI, under the able chairmanship of CA Praful Jhajir sir, has organized the session on global ethical challenges. So today's session is like a bunch of flowers. We have with us galaxies of learned personality with us. I take the honor to welcome Alan Johnson sir, CA Praful Jhajir sir, CA T.N. Manoharan sir, CA Atul Kumar Gupta sir, CA Neeraj Litodia sir, and CA E.N. Vaze sir. I thank all the distinguished invitees for accepting our invitation and making up despite your busy schedule. To smell the aroma of each flower of the seminar, we start our seminar by the opening remarks and address by the Chairman, Ethical Standard Board, CA Praful Jhajir sir. With enthusiasm combined with dedication, CA Praful Jhajir sir has always been actively involved with activities of ICAI, a dedicated professional who is always on a go and happy to help. Past president of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India 1920, he is the global chairman of Executive Committee of World Congress of Accountants 2022, constituted by International Federation of Accountants, that is IFAC. He is also elected as a board member of CAPA, that is Confederation of Asian and Pacific Accountants. I request CA Praful Jhajir sir for his remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Very good afternoon. It's indeed my proud privilege and honor to welcome so many distinguished dignitaries who are here with us, going to share their immense knowledge with the fraternity of the chartered accountants, not only in India, but also many members are joining from overseas. To begin with, we have none other than the global president of the International Federation of Accountants, respected Sri Alan Johnson sir. He is, one of the finest professional I had seen in my life, and currently being the the global president of the entire accountancy profession. He is very strong in his voice concerning the accountancy profession and taking it to the appropriate level, sir. It's indeed honor of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for when we are organizing this particular webinar that you are, I am aware that you are just now have to take the flight also, but it was kind enough of you for accepting our invitation. Once again, sir, warm welcome to you and thank you for, joining all of us. Thank you so much, sir. We also have, our distinguished past presidents, respected Sri T.N. Manoharan, sir, who is always, very well sought after for the guidance to the profession. And sir, thank you so much for joining us. We also have my dear friend, again, the respected past president of the Institute, Sri Atul Gupta ji, who is also now on the board of the IFAC also. We also have friends, as you are aware, this particular webinar, we are being supported by our overseas chapters who are really very active. And we also have my dear friend Neeraj, who is now currently the chairman of one of the very important overseas chapter of the ICAI. for joining us. And we have the very eminent faculty in form of Mr. C.N. Vaze, who carries a lot of experience about these particular subjects. Thank you so much. Our Honorable President, Mr. Nihar, was supposed to join, but unfortunately his flight got rescheduled. So he will be maybe joining a little late with all of us. So without taking further time, friends, I am once again welcoming all these members who are joining for this particular thing. As a chairman of the Ethical Standards Boards of the ICAI, let me share a few of the things with, especially when our IFAC President, sir, is with us. Sir, as you are aware, the ICAI was incorporated by the Act of Parliament way back in 1949. Ever since then, the important pillars of our ICAI has been excellence, independence, and ethical. And all these last 72 years, our members have been following all these principles in a absolute manner, absolutely no compromise. Sir, you will be happy to note that our first edition of Code of Ethics, which was earlier called as Code of Conduct, was issued way back in 1963. After that, sir, in the year 1976, for the first time, the ICAI has constituted the Ethical Standard Board. After which, sir, in the next year, the International Ethical Standard Board was formed. So, it was the ICAI who actually given the name Ethical Standard Board way back in 1976. And of course, but ever since, sir, we are taking the global guidance. The entire ICAI is following the IFAC vision, be it on the accounting standard side, be it on the auditing standard side, and be it also on the ethical standard side. So it has been always our endeavor to, have our ethical standard aligned with the global standards, so that as a profession, we stand together under the vision of the IFAC. So, sir, for the first time in the year 2009, the ICAI has converged its standards, ethical standards, with the IFAC and ISB standards Code of Ethics way back in 2009. Again, in February 2019, when the ISBA issued again guidance in 2018, again 2019 we again did our major resolving, and again it was again realigned with this. So sir, the entire vision of the ICAI is also with the global vision. Now, sir, our Code of Ethics contains 3 volumes, volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3. So volume 1 is, we take a lot of guidance from the global experience. Volume 2 is certain domestic provision, and volume 3 is about the disciplinary mechanism, sir. So this is about this thing. Respected members, dear friends, today's topic is ethical challenges in emergence of new technology. As we are all aware, now the technology is very important, and accountancy profession is no longer away from the technology, be it on the auditing front side or the accounting front of side. But at the same time, the important pillar of the profession is the ethical. So how we keep ethically proper in times of when a lot of technology is also hitting us. So today's topic, the various dignitaries are going to share their knowledge, and of course the IFAC President, sir, will share his entire vision of the profession, how one has to be very ethical in terms of and what he's expecting. Sir, at India also, again, recently we have launched one search engine portal, because in India we don't allow CA firms to advertise themselves and all those things, but we have launched the new portal CA Connect, wherein the ICAI members can log in, they can put their basic information, so that any member coming and they can actually join. So this is the brief. Once again, I welcome all those things. As I was telling you, respected IFAC President, sir, has to catch the flight. So straight away, I'll be requesting him to share his knowledge. But friends, as you are aware, it is not easy to become the IFAC President so early. And sir has, dedicated so many years for the cause of the profession. Very briefly, I would like to introduce sir also. So we have the IFAC President, Alan Johnson, who became the IFAC President in the November 2020, having previously served as the Deputy President from 2018 till 2020, and as a board member since November 2015. So he's been contributing at the IFAC board since November 2015. He was nominated to the IFAC board by the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, ACCA. Mr. Johnson was a member of IFAC Professional Accountants in Business Committee between 2011 and 15, a member of ACCA's Market Oversight Committee between 2006 to 2012, chair of the Accountants for Business Global Forum till 2018. In October 2016, he was appointed as the Board of Trustee of the very important International Valuation Standard Council, and sir was also chairing its audit committee. Between July 2018 and September 20, he was non-executive director of UK Department for International Development and chaired its Audit and Risk Assurance Committee. As a professional, sir has also a lot of experience working with the multinational companies and carries lot of wisdom. And whenever, sir, we meet you, we always see you not only as the IFAC president, but actually true friend, mentor to the ICAI and to me personally also. So thank you so much, sir, once again for joining us. And without taking further time, straight away, I'll be requesting you, sir, you can share your wisdom and give the guidance to the profession. And thank you so much, sir. Under your able leadership, hopefully in the November 2022, the ICAI will be hosting the World Congress of Accountants. We are all geared up. In fact, just now, we were talking before starting the programs with the Abu Dhabi chairman and also our Manoharan sir and others, that how we are gearing ourselves. So looking forward for that support also, sir. Thank you. And over to respected IFAC President Alan Johnson. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Praful, and thank you very much for your kind words. So past President Al Gupta, who is also a current member of the IFAC board and a very good colleague of mine, members of the ICAI Council, and of course your own president who is currently traveling. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's an honor and privilege to be able to join you this afternoon as the president of the International Federation of Accountants. So as the global voice of the accountancy profession, IFAC was founded in 1977. And today we have over 175 members, which represent over 3 million professional accountants in more than 130 countries. We work, as you do, to serve in the public interest by enhancing the relevance and the reputation of our profession and the value of accountancy across the world. ICAI is a founding member of IFAC, and the IFAC-ICAI relationship is very strong and one that is very important to us. We value the excellent work that you've been doing over many decades, and really pleased to see what you said about the ethical standards that you actually got to even before IFAC did internationally. The work you've been doing to strengthen the profession in India and beyond and across the region, and particularly the support that you provide to the economies and to the public sector in these rather challenging times. And I'm really pleased to see that the Indian government is addressing these COVID challenges very well. And it's good to see that the numbers are getting much better, even though, any number is not good, but nevertheless, you're moving in the right direction. And that's, of course, a credit not only to the government, but to the citizens of your country. So well done. And obviously, my thoughts go out to all the families that have lost their loved ones prematurely. It's really been a very sad 18 months. But let's hope that in the coming months, we'll see even more progress and get back to some kind of normal life. So my special thanks, Prafulla, to you as the chair of your Ethics Standards Board for inviting me to speak to you today. And the topic of your webinar is really timely and very important. As the lady introduced the topic, we all know that technology is moving at a very fast pace, and we've got to make sure as a profession we stay abreast of what's happening and, in fact, stay ahead of that so we can continue to fulfill our role. So digitalization clearly has accelerated in rather dramatic ways, and particularly, of course, during the pandemic. It's because of technology that we are able to continue to operate, and in fact, that I'm able to join you today virtually rather than being with you in India, which of course I would much rather prefer to do. Processes that used to take place in person were suddenly interrupted in March last year, and professional accountants everywhere found themselves having to do the same work, but also the same work in different ways. And it's a credit to our profession that we've been able to develop new understanding of how to engage with our clients, with our customers, with each other, and continue to provide our services. And that's a real credit to all of you that have been able to do so. But when we look forward, doing the same work differently won't be enough. We've got to adapt. We've got to thrive in the world of digitalization. And we've got to find sustainable roles in the developing digital economy. And the profession will need to look to do different work entirely. And the accountant of the future will clearly need to perform new roles, often with much more advisory responsibilities, rather than just the technical skills that we've had for many years. We'll become more multidisciplinary. We will have more non-traditional contributors working with us so that we can tap into their knowledge and expertise, particularly their technology expertise. And this is really an opportunity, because although, of course, technology will lead to further automation of processes that we've been conducting for many generations, but they will generate new opportunities which would require our skills, both current skills and the skills that we will develop going forward. But, these new developments will create the need for trusted advisors with very broad skill sets. And most importantly, and I think it goes back to what your chairman just said, the integrity and the professionalism and the ethical dimension of an accountant. Because wherever economic growth is sustainable, these qualities that we have will be very, very valuable and prized. And we need to make sure that we continue to ensure that we deliver on those commitments that we've made. And there will be many new ethical considerations as the world and the profession continues to digitalize, and our collective response to these needs to be very robust. And I'm pleased to see, as I said earlier, that your event today is really timely, because it shows that you not only are aware of the changes that are taking place, but you really want to understand and engage with our members to make sure your members, our members too, are fit for the future and are able to discharge their responsibilities. But, we are in a good place in many ways, because the International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, is really built to last, because it's principles-based and it's about ethical behavior. And, we are ready for, the unpredictable future, because we have our code that appeals to the core principles of our profession, and interesting you use the word integrity, ethics, and increasingly the skepticism that we need to have to discharge our responsibilities independently. That's what organizations are looking for. That's what the public is looking for. And that's what we're well skilled to do. And, our code of ethics underpins what we do, and indeed gives us the freedom to operate as professional accountants. And no matter what course digitalization takes, our profession must continue to work towards the global adoption and implementation of our ethical principles. And I'm pleased to see that that's exactly what you're doing, as you said in 2009 when you converged, and you updated in 2019. But there are still parts of the world where there hasn't been full and complete adoption of our ethical standards. And that is important, because what we do know in this globally connected world is any failure of a profession anywhere in the world, whether we like it or not, does impact the reputation of the profession elsewhere. So it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that we get to the highest level of adoption and implementation of ethical standards. Because if we don't do that, simply we will lose our right to be heard in critical conversations and discussions, whether it's on the economy, whether it's financial, be it political or even social. So what have we been doing at IFAC in this space? So last month, IFAC, together with CPA Canada, and I know you have a good relationship with CPA Canada, and together with the Institute of Chartered Accountants Scotland, they published a paper entitled Complexity and the Professional Accountant and Practical Guidance for Ethical Decision Making. And I would recommend that you have a look at that report, because I think it brings together a lot of thinking. And it will be the first in a series of 4 papers, so it's only the first, so there's more to come, all of which will return to the core theme of ethical leadership in an era of complexity and digital change. So again, it just shows that you're really up to date in having this webinar today. And, the paper emerged from a roundtable event held earlier in the year with about 100 influential voices from across the accountancy profession and elsewhere. And it's an excellent resource for everyone interested in today's conversation about ethics in a digital world. And let me just highlight a few things that came out. First, the roundtable's view from practitioners, so from professionals like us. Everyone recognized that the role of the professional accountant is broadening. Sustainable economic development, climate action, social justice, alongside digitalization, are calling for the principles and core competencies that our profession embodies today. So we're in a good place. And we can help shape our clients and organizations' decision-making in these areas. Very, very important role that we play. The roundtable noted that professional accountants are now more frequently asked to take on roles that contribute to the discussions that are outside of the historical sphere of the profession, such as how do we manage data? What is the value of data? The value of information security, management of risk. How is risk management embedded across organizations? The integrity of data to support effective decision making. These are areas which we are being called on as a professional accountant to have an opinion on, have a view on, and to guide organizations. And as we are bound by our sort of principles of acting with integrity, we need to maintain our objectivity, and of course we have to continue to apply due care to all the relationships we have. And above all, we have to continue to act in the public interest and promoting an ethical culture across organizations, because we have ethics at the foundation of our profession and have had for many years, many decades, as Chairman Prafulla has already said. But it'll be fair to say that is not the case right across organizations and industry, and indeed in the public sector too, around the world. So, we have an important role to take our ethical understanding and help broaden that right across organizations. And that is the commitment to, our commitment to rigorous embedding of ethical principles. That's what we will need to do, and that's what is expected from our stakeholders broadly, because they know that we have a very strong code of conduct and code of ethical principles. The roundtable also noted a sense amongst professional accountants that, the negative consequences of, say, mistakes seem to be greater than ever. You only need to open a newspaper today anywhere in the world, and you will see a conversation taking place about failures, whether they're corporate failures, whether they're failures of our profession, whether they're audit failures, whether we like it or not. They will continue to be talked about. So we've got to really question ourselves. How can we minimize? Failure will always happen. We need to learn from failure. In fact, if we didn't have failure, we wouldn't learn and we wouldn't improve. So failure in itself is not an issue. The issue is, what do we learn? What do we make of it? And what do we do to address them in order to ensure that we prevent such failures in the past? Even without the pandemic, the environment which is holding business leaders more to account, this is a trend that's been happening. And, we have a very important role to play. And I would go back, and it's very important also for India. SMEs are at the backbone of your economy, as they are in most countries around the world. And we do know that SMEs have some challenges. They have challenges in terms of access to talent. They have challenges in access to finance. They have challenges to scale up to meet the demands of regional and international supply chains. And again, we can help with our knowledge and our knowledge of integrity, our ethical principles, to help them skill up, to increase their level of competence. And that brings me back to the issue of technology. We know that it's moving very fast, and we also know that some parts of the economy are struggling to not only, catch up, but actually to get on the journey. And again, that's something that we as professional accountants can help them with our technical skills and our competencies. The other thing is, when it comes to the role of digitalization is, we need to think about our own skill base. And of course, I know that all the professional accountancy organizations, such as ICAI, are examining whether our traditional approaches are still the best approaches to demonstrate value to our stakeholders. So current and future professional accountants will find that many technical problems are indeed solvable by technology, by algorithms, which are increasingly becoming the domain, artificial intelligence. But these bring ethical questions, which we as professional accountants need to ask of ourselves. We need to provide the appropriate oversight. We must ensure that the existing and professional accountants and aspiring professional accountants have a firm grasp of the principles behind good decision making, especially when ethical questions are being asked. And, it is much harder today for, say, ICAI to assess the individual professional skepticism in this area of technology. And it's a challenge for all of us. It's a challenge for ICAI. We need to think about it, because the traditional way that we examined our students will not suffice going forward. There was another discussion I'd like to turn to, which was an expert discussion held by the IESBA, so the International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants. They had a technology initiative, which included the objective to identify potential ethical implications of technology developments on the robustness and the relevance of the fundamental principles and independence of the standards in the Code of Ethics. So they're now examining that to see whether it is fit for purpose. And it looks for ways in which technologies can be used to support and enhance compliance. So there's an opportunity always. So in October 2020, IFAC convened a group of over 30 people representing professional accountancy organizations, firms, accountants in business, academia, etc., to look at the agenda of technology, which, AI, blockchain, cloud computing, data ethics, etc. And, there were a number of questions that were asked. Should the code change in response to technological advances, and what support could be helpful? The good news here, actually, is that the participants believe that the code provides a high level of principles-based guidance for most technology-related ethical issues. So whether the code needs much change will be looked at. It was subject to a longer discussion, but the participants felt strongly that the code did not need to change significantly because it's, as I said earlier, it's principle-based and it's fit for purpose in all situations. So that's good news. They argue that perhaps more specific, detailed elements of the code on issues such as issues relating to ethics in technology could be considered in order to ensure that the code is not outdated. And that's something that will be looked at. The other question is that who is accountable for ethical issues? Because is that clearly in the scope of the professional accountant? And as we know, business is becoming more complex as digitalization and technology developments take place. And of course, questions arise on the over-reliance on technology. If, for example, artificially intelligent systems, they raise broad questions and sometimes some concerns. For example, a system's logic will produce a certain output. It might be clear to the developer or only to the people with an extremely sophisticated technological knowledge. But how do we place reliance on that? How do we take responsibility for something that we don't necessarily know or have control of? So, we have some of these dilemmas which we need to think through carefully. We don't have all the answers today, but these are issues that I'm sure will come up, if not today in your webinar, will come up as you continue to develop your thinking in this area. And, extremely disruptive historical events, hopefully they are historical, such as COVID-19. We're now relying on systems and information to make public policy. How robust is the information that policymakers are using to make profound policy decisions in quick time? We need to think about the robustness of the data that is being produced, which increasingly decisions are reliant on. So the group emphasized that greater reliance on technology and decision-making will pose dilemmas related to the code, existing requirements. As you know, as professional accountants, we have a reliance on others in the work that we do. We place a lot of reliance. How do we place reliance on things that we don't fully understand? That's an issue for professional accountants that we need to think about going forward. And the final question that was asked was, how much should professional accountants know? So we have the need for foundational skills and knowledge, which will support our own development as a profession. We have a commitment to lifelong learning. We have a commitment to professional skepticism and collaboration in increasingly in a multidisciplinary model. And that was one of the discussions that took place. So, IFAC in 2020, and you're very much aware of this, called to reimagine the future of an accountant and puts the individual at the heart of the future readiness of our profession, and to take into account the dynamics that are taking place, particularly relating to technology, to make sure we continue to adopt lifelong learning and career development that will enable us to be successful in a digital age. So, there's a lot going on, but it is clear to me that professional accountants, irrespective of their roles, we need to know enough to understand what is being said. We need to know enough to ask the right questions of those that are providing the data. And we need to be able to make sense of the data that is used to aid decision-making. In today's world, we, as professional accountants, we simply cannot say the machine told me without understanding the underlying logic or without applying enabling competencies such as critical thinking, professional skepticism, and indeed something that is vital and important to us, our professional judgment. So, in conclusion, change is here, more is coming for the accountancy profession. New technologies are driving that change, but this is not anything that is really new to us. Our profession has adapted and thrived through the past century of technology revolution. But success, of course, of the past is not a given. We will achieve it only with thorough and thoughtful responses to today's challenges and preparation for those challenges that we face ahead of us. And the importance of ethics in the work of professional accountants will not change with the times, but the application of the profession's foundation in ethics may take different forms. So as entire economies and societies digitalize, the traditionally data-heavy finance functions of the professional accountant are taking on a scale and level of complexity that in many cases exceed what professional accountants or any one person we've been trained to handle. But expectations for the profession continue to grow. The profession and the core competences of individual accountants will need to evolve to remain current and relevant going forward. But our history has demonstrated that we are an agile, responsive, and forward-looking profession. And I have absolutely no doubt that we will continue to help organizations navigate through these challenges. And our professional services today are even more important than in the past years, given the fast-changing pace in business and in society. And I have to say that ICAI has demonstrated over decades that your members work truly in the public interest to preserve and create value for your clients and your organizations. And as chartered accountants, you are a prized profession and a valuable business partner to governments and corporations. And more than ever, you are being called upon to lead the way. So I would like to thank ICAI for holding this global webinar. By having these discussions and challenging ourselves and yourselves, you continue to identify how, as professionals, you can support organizations to find solutions to address the ethical dilemmas that they face. We are a global profession that is well recognized for our ethical principles, our professional skills, and our knowledge, and our absolute commitment to upholding the highest standards of ethical behavior everywhere that we operate. This is the legacy that we've inherited from our predecessors, and one that we must continue to develop to ensure our profession remains relevant in society. We all know that our reputations have been built over many decades and can be destroyed in a matter of seconds. And our job, clearly, is to protect that reputation and ensure that it is enduring. So finally, Chairman Prafulla, thank you very much for inviting me to join you today. I wish you a successful webinar, and my best wishes to all of you for lots of success in your careers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. It was, so nice of you on your part, sir, to cover the entire profession, how you are looking at the world and all those things. You not only covered, sir, the history of our ethical behavior of the accountancy profession, but also guided all of us how we should be futuristic, what should be our roadmap in terms of be technology, not technology, but our ethical values should never be compromised. You rightly said, sir, failures can be understood, but greed cannot be understood. And I think that is the clear-cut message, sir, Honorable Sir, which you had given. I understand the technology may have impact on the details. One needs to understand in order to be ethical, but it does not change the behavior of being ethical. The simple reality is ethics is all about human behavior and not about technology, sir. And as a true leader, sir, not only you understand the ICAI very well, but you also understand the economy of our country also. When you were, passionately talking about the SME sector that dominates our economy, it was really absolutely very good on your part, sir. And as we are always committed to work under the guidance of the overall IFAC vision, we will continue to do so, sir. In fact, sir, when you are here, I cannot resist myself but requesting Mr. Atul Gupta to propose a very hearty vote of thanks, sir. We would have loved you to be here with all of us entire, the duration of this webinar. But I understand you are now immediately after this, you have to rush to the airport, and now Atul being your colleague there, so I can always request Atul being my very close and dear friend. We worked in the council for 9 years together now. So may I request Mr. Atul Gupta, who will be actually chairing the session also, but for this very important address of our IFAC president, may I request Mr. Atul to propose vote of thanks. Then we'll be moving to the next segment of the webinar. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prafulji. And at the outset, I convey the sincere regards and gratitude to Alan, the IFAC president, for sparing his valuable time and sharing his thought as dynamic as always on this particular platform. So on behalf of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, we always feel cherished and privileged to, whenever you are there between us, to share your global, your vision and the thoughts which you have gathered in the global exposures and all these things which are over a period of time. Sir, you rightly mentioned, as summarized by our Honorable past President and the Chairman of the Ethical Standard Board, that it's very, very important for the profession to remain relevant with the passage of time in the era of digital disruption, and how the principle-based ethics, while we have the application of these ethics, how we can adapt ourselves with the passage of time so that we can remain relevant. So there are a number of things which I believe your address will give a message to the entire community of the profession. Not only this will be a live session, but since this session is well recorded and will be available on the ICAI TV and other social media platforms. So in the times to come also, I believe the thousands of members will be able to appreciate your thoughts on the topic. As usual, I'm blessed to be the part of the IFAC board under your able guidance. So I will have a lot of privileges to hear you on the different occasions. But this is a great moment for the ICAI that when you are here and giving an inaugural and a keynote address on this occasion. Once again, thanks on behalf of the ICAI for sparing your precious time and your precious and valuable time for the profession. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, and look forward to seeing you at the board meeting next week. Thank you very much, Atul.
Yes, and I will be there.
And bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Prafulla. Thank you.
May I now request Charmi to take over and start the further proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Non-fungible tokens, digital humans, and physics, that is informed artificial intelligence, have joined the 25 technology profiles on this year's emerging technology hype cycle. Today, the technology has really brought us closer. Moving on to the next aroma in the bunch of flowers. If opportunity doesn't knock, builder do. This is well portrayed by our next keynote addressee, a personality in himself, CA T.N. Manoharan, sir. Today, it's an honor for me to introduce Manoharan, sir. He's the former president of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. The government of India conferred him the Padma Shri Award, India's fourth highest civilian award, in 2010. He is currently member of Standing External Advisory Committee of RBI for evaluating application for universal banks and small finance banks. He has also received several awards, including the Business Leadership Award for NDTV Profit in 2009 and CNN IBN Indian of the Year 2009 award in the business category. With this brief introduction, I welcome T.N. Manoharan. Floor is open for you, sir.
Thank you,
from my individual side also, sir, respected Manohar sir, welcome. Charmi missed because your biodata is such a huge, it is very difficult, and especially for the newcomers to read. One of these are one very important, proud achievement, I can say. In spite of you being a practitioner, chartered accountant, the government has also given you the opportunity to serve as the chairman of one of the very important bank, Canara Bank, and that shows the volume of your knowledge, not only in the profession that we every day hear and always love to hear continuously, but also the other side, how you can give the direction to the economy and to the traders, etc. Thank you, sir. Once again, on my personal behalf, also welcome to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Prafulji, Atulji, distinguished past presidents of ICAI, Niraj, the chairman of the Abu Dhabi chapter, my good friend and a resource person for this today's session, CN Waze, anchoring this program so nicely, CA Chami, and other beloved members who have joined this program virtually. It gives me immense pleasure to be part of this program and to deliver the keynote address. I must compliment and congratulate Prafulji and the Ethics Standards Board of ICAI for proactively conceptualizing the theme for this program, Ethical Challenges in Emergence of New Technologies. This is a topic of significance and of current importance, and it has been rightly picked up for deliberation. And we have heard IFAC President Alan Jones so eloquently highlighting the challenges, the nuances, the intricacies, the risks associated with abuse of technology. Let me share a brief presentation as part of my keynote address and take you through so that we are able to carry home certain thoughts for our assimilation. Now, as far as these challenges are concerned in terms of the ethical, issues concerning the new technologies, it is imperative that technology brings in transformational changes for the good. But with everything that is phenomenally benefiting the mankind, you also have to be cautious of the perils that it can cause if it is not properly used. From that perspective, in the today's environment, I'm reminded of what Charles Darwin said. He said it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent ones, but rather the one most responsive to change. And today's world is more aptly described. I mean, we can borrow the term of the American soldiers' war room terminology, acronym, which says VUCA world. The VUCA world is nothing but the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. What has contributed these four elements, which has made things so unpredictable? One is the technological evolution. The other one is the pandemic situation on account of COVID-19. So these two factors we are expected to comprehend, because only if we are responsive to change, the adaptability of the profession to the environment and the challenges the technology brings in can enable us to move forward and dominate in the emerging era. Now, to highlight some of the ethical challenges, the first one that comes to my mind is the misuse of personal information. For example, the data relating to what kind of products people seek after, what kind of content is most consumed. Even on the political front, what social issues attract most attention, what legal issues dominate the mindset of the people. From different perspectives, different fields, phenomenal information is available related to the masses, and how that is going to be used or misused. If it is used for productive purposes, that's fine. But if it is misused, then there are going to be challenges. Similarly, misinformation and deep fakes. 2020 US elections was the classic example as to how, these deep fakes or misinformation, the effect created polarization and resulting in wide-reaching effects across the US. Similarly, is there an accountability, a responsibility, especially when an organization is on a hybrid mode, partly using its own technology and also hiring the third parties services on technology? Now, how is the accountability secured? Similarly, the autonomous technology. Today is that, the current practices are related to usage of drones, self-driven cars, vehicles, and robotic weapons. In fact, human soldiers may gradually be replaced by robotic arms and ammunitions to defend even the nation. Now, how do we trust these automized technology? And poor disclosure norms on the personal data usage by the various entities that are in possession of voluminous data. So how are we going to secure transparency? And should there be a standardization in terms of the disclosure norms? These are all the things that are going to evolve. And as professionals in the finance field, it is imperative on our part to facilitate the formulation of these policies and also be part of the successful implementation thereafter. And compromised patient data, for example, in healthcare, especially in the current scenario where many countries are vying with each other to invent and come with the remedial medicines and drugs. The patient data assumes greater significance. And how are these being used? Valuing money above human rights. In fact, President did mention about greed. Increasingly having a reputation, do you value money above all? Or alternatively, can we inculcate a culture of the entities having a reputation for valuing people their privacy, and their human rights. And that is what will make the organization stand out in the long run and even ethically make more money. This is what is the challenge that needs to be effectively addressed, and we need to come out with solutions. Artificial intelligence is going to dominate in the future. One of the facets is the legality of facial recognition. New York Times, while discussing about this aspect, has even gone to the extent of saying that maybe facial recognition can be abused, leading to racial bias and also the restriction on personal freedom. So how to check that? How to prevent misuse of facial recognition mechanism? Similarly, artificial intelligence will lead to automation of many of the jobs, which will displace human resources from their respective positions. So is it going to lead to insecurity of the jobs that people are engaged with? Is another challenge that needs to be addressed. Similarly, all these algorithms are designed by humans, and they inherit the human bias of the creators of those systems and software. So how to ensure that the artificial intelligence does not carry the human bias to the detriment of the users? Similarly, decisions made by autonomous driving systems. No doubt, scientifically it has been proved that the number of accidents on account of remote operated vehicles are much less compared to the human driven vehicles. That's fine. But in the event of a compelling pollution situation, how is the automized system going to decide whether it has to collide with a motorcyclist who is alone or against a car where 4 people are seated and whose lives could be at risk? That kind of a discretion, on the spot decision making, while nobody can challenge the artificial intelligence in terms of the least time it can take to decide, but how well and meaningfully it can decide. These are all the things that needs to be ensured. Similarly, systematic discrimination in data used to train artificial intelligence. For example, if a system is developed, AI is developed for reviewing resumes, profiles. Now the capability of that artificial intelligence system will be only as good as the resumes they are trained with. So how are we going to ensure that they are empowered with adequate training before they get implemented? So having highlighted some of the challenges, let me speak about some of the remedial measures. Maybe the organizations should be advised to respect employees and customers. No doubt, data is valuable, but more valuable are the employees' rights and customers' protection. Similarly, the moral use of data and resources should be ensured. While morality cannot be legislated, conduct can be regulated. And therefore, we need to ensure that there is the responsible adoption of the disruptive technology. And that culture of safe and ethical use of technology has to be ensured and secured. For this, laws are evolving across the globe in different jurisdictions. So we have to also facilitate evolution of the laws and regulations that will prevent these kind of challenges. Then on the job loss, I was mentioning job insecurity. Artificial intelligence is meant to increase automation of low-level tasks in many situations so that human resources can be used on more strategic initiatives and complicated job duties. That is where there has to be proper education and proper training that we can elevate ourselves in terms of the usage, better usage of our human intellect, leaving the mundane, routine, systematic, ordinary works to machines who can do it much better and faster and effective. Similarly, since it is a globalized scenario, We should not have fractioned laws and regulations. Like, for example, European Union, you have the General Data Protection Regulation. The globe has to evolve, synchronize, collaborate, and enable the implementation of harmonious data privacy regulation, so that there are multiple multinational entities, global entities will find them useful. Technology is very, very powerful. But unless we proactively tackle these ethical dilemmas and challenges, we may end up in a disastrous situation. And it's not only for an individual, but for the entire economy, for the entire society, this holds good. So we have to plan where we are going in terms of usage of technology, so that we don't end up where we don't want to be. Technology, is it a boon or a bane? Anybody will say it is a boon for humankind, because it is going to, it has already improved the scale at which we can operate. It has a tremendous ability to deliver with absolute speed, unbelievable speed. The quality is much better than human delivery. The accuracy of findings are phenomenal, and cost optimization is also achieved by use of technology. But we should not forget that, there was a mention about this, Padma Shri Award that was given obviously because of what little role I played in revival of Satyam. The greatest lesson I learned as part of Satyam revival was, by sheer hard work, vision, competence, you can go to the top. Satyam did go to the top by vision, hard work, competence, technology. But to stay there, you need integrity. You need ethical values to be practiced and preserved. And therefore, ethics is the bedrock on which technology-driven growth can be sustained. That message should not be lost sight of. In the emerging technologies, we have phenomenal professional opportunities. We have Internet of Things, IoT, artificial intelligence, cloud, blockchain technology, data analytics, tools, gadgets, softwares. There is also a dilemma in the minds of young professionals, whether all these, artificial intelligence, automation, all these things will replace a chartered accountant, will replace the services of an auditor. While the routine, mundane services can be replaced or displaced, not certainly the high-end services. And that is where we will have to elevate ourselves. Using the cricket terminology, before the advent of technology, there were only 2 umpires for a cricket match who go to the pitch. One stands behind the stumps and one on the leg side. And that continues to be so. But after the advent of technology, look at the way the opportunity for umpires has increased. It is not only the 2 umpires at the pitch, you have a 3rd umpire, and international matches, you also have a 4th umpire, and above all, you have a match referee also. Similarly, if we embrace technology in our profession also, technology, gadgets, softwares can only complement our functioning. They can only supplement our functioning. They cannot substitute our functioning, because it is only we who can exercise our professional skepticism, professional judgment, and even common sense in coming to many conclusions before delivering our services or findings or reports. Therefore, our professional existence, excellence is inevitable, but can be duly supported by the artificial intelligence and technology. Let us, conquer this VUCA world. I started by saying VUCA means, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. But how do we conquer this VUCA world? By using the same alphabets, let me say, let us embrace virtuousness, which is ethics. For the alphabet V, it is not volatility, it is virtuousness. For the alphabet U, it is not the uncertainty, it is the understanding of the nuances of technology and the implications of technology, and using them in the right manner. C is not complexity, it is the compassion with which, like IFAC president mentioned, how we can help the SMEs to overcome their challenges on finance, governance, talent, technology. So therefore, compassion. And A is not ambiguity, it is the adaptability that we are capable of as chartered accountants. So one generation gave theosophy to humanity, yet another generation built monuments in India. One another generation was instrumental in bringing agricultural revolution, next generation industrial revolution, last generation service sector revolution. And currently it is the digital revolution, technological revolution that is happening. Let us add on moral revolution to make it robust, ethical, so that it is used for the proper purposes and we are able to build economies across the globe and more particularly in India, a credible economy in incredible India, so that our profession stays relevant, reliable and credible. Thank you very much for the golden opportunity.
Thank you, sir. If this would be a physical lecture, then there will be a huge round of applause or any standing ovation to you, sir. So in Sanskrit, there is a saying which says, whatever is not obtained from the Guru cannot be obtained from elsewhere. With the grace of Guru, one indeed gets everything. Synchronization in the world should be the new mantra, as you said, and this is aptly important in this world. So reflecting your views, thank you and accept our gratitude for valuable time in guiding us today. Today, it is our honor to have CA Manish Gadia sir, Chairman WIRC with us. Very active and has delivered more than 550 lectures across the India. I welcome you, sir, and I request you kindly propose and share your views today in this global seminar.
First of all, I thank you, Praful Bhai and Ethical Standard Board for the opportunity to interact with the members, and really indeed a pleasure. Really very we have seen that members should follow that ethical standard, and Ethical Standard Board is doing great work. Various queries are also there and they have answered that their queries. And as far as WIS is concerned, we are grateful that Praful Bhai has allowed us to have a program, or I can say a total series of 4 sessions on ethical standard, which was very well appreciated by the members of the same. So thank you very much. What do you, Cham?
Thank you, sir, for the kind words. Moving on to our session for the day. No river can return to its source, yet all rivers must have a beginning. Last session words belong to the last session, and the next session words await another voice. And for the next voice, we have with us our session chairman and the speakers who are intellectual for the topic. We have with us our session chairman, CA Atul Kumar Gupta sir, to share his insights. To formally introduce him, he is immediate past president of ICAI, and he has been the chairman of ICAI Accounting Research Foundation and Extendable Business Reporting Language, India. He has also been a director of governing board of Indian Institute of Insolvency Professional and Register Valuer Organization. On international front, he is on the board of International Federation of Accountants, that is IFAC, XBRL International, and South Asian Federation of Accountants, and representing ICAI in International Integrated Reporting Council. He earlier has been chairman of Committee on Education, Training, and CPD of SAFA. With this brief introduction, I request Atul Kumar Gupta sir to give his insights.
Yeah, thank you, Charmi. And at the outset, my regards to and gratitude to T.N. Manoran sir, our past president, and CA Praful Chhajarji, my president, under whom I undergone the articleship training as a vice president and even worked together for 9 years as a council member. Very dynamic chairman of the Abu Dhabi chapter, CA Niraj Ritolia ji, Madam Charmi, and in absentia, the Alan Johnson, the President IFAC. Friends, as you are aware that the professional, the chartered accountants and the profession of accountancy always play a very, very important role. It's an important constituent of economy who not only act as a catalyst for the growth, but also, I used to say, they protect the interest of the common man by laying down the standards of the disclosure while following the principle of integrity, ethics, and excellence. Now, friends, when we understand that this role is there, when the professionals are playing in the economy, more towards the sustainability of the economy, it is very, very important for all of us to understand and adapt the changes, the challenges which are being there because of the digital disruption. Friends, in the school time, each one of us learned about the ABCD, which stands for A for apple and B for ball. But as rightly mentioned by Alan and even by our past president, Sir Manoharan Sahab, that today the A stands for the artificial intelligence and B stands for the blockchain. While the C and D, I will discuss you later, but the two very, very important technological disruption which we can witness in every sphere of our life, then our profession can't remain aloof with the impact of these two very, very important digital disruption. These two aspects which we used to know, the artificial intelligence and the blockchain, which can bring a lot of intelligence into the activity, the maker-checker concept which can be introduced by the blockchain technology, is certainly outsourcing, or I will say, the making the automation of the routine and the repetitive things. So what is happening? That when we are doing the assurance services or any professional assignment, our routine and the repetitive things are getting outsourced to the system because of these two very, very important technology, which is emerging for every profession, may it be the profession of the medicines, may it be the profession of accountancy, may it be the profession of the legal or otherwise. Now, friends, when we understand that there is a high expectation of the society, there is always a bridging gap between the assurance vis-a-vis the investigations. The future of the assurance services will be more of the assurance on the investigation side. I will use to say the commission side rather than the audit of the omissions. So what I'm trying to convey you, that when there will be a maker-checker concept, the technology will support in such a way that there will not be any omissions while punching a particular data or the analysis of the data. Then it will be more the audit of the commission rather than the omission. Now, when I am saying this, that there will be a lot of technological, I will say the intervention in the entire process. It is very, very important, and which is highlighted by our president of the IFAC, is about the quality of the data. So the professionals will require a more the emphasis, more strength, or the more the, I will say that putting their resources or the energy to see whether the data which is being received is having that kind of a validation, the standardization, or the accuracy, which should be an important ingredient of the final outcome in the shape of a financial statement. So what will happen? That the profession will see a different, I will say, different kind of a dynamism, the different kind of a dimension, when it will be more the audit of a data as compared to the financial statement per se. Now that here it is very, very important to understand the role of the C and D, which I specifically mentioned that we will be discussing in a later part of our discussion, and where the C stands for cyber security and D for the data analytics. So what I'm trying to convey you, what the Alan tried to convey our friends, that when there is a digital disruption, when we are looking for our integrity, the ethics, the excellence, it will be more that the C and D, which will be useful when the A and B will create a kind of a situation of a maker and checker. The World Economic Forum, if you will study the World Economic Forum report, that clearly mentioned that there will be a job loss of 75 million by the next 2 to 3 years, and the top 10 job loss there includes the services of an accountant and the auditor, they specifically mentioned that there will be the 133 million new jobs which will emerge out, and specifically in the area of the data analytics and so on. A report which came around 5 to 7 years back specifically mentioned that after 15 years, the 65% of the job which we will be doing is not in the existence today. So this all talks about that how the process, how the underlying applications, the principle will change, though I will say that, as rightly mentioned by the Ellen, that the ethical standards are the principle-based standards. As compared to that, they require so much of a dynamism. But yes, the underlying principles, the process, and the application of those standards will require a lot of, I will say, adaptation at the level of the professional. Now, my dear friend, if we understand the professional misconduct, or I will say whenever there will be a challenge towards the ethics, as rightly observed by the Manoharan ji as well, that there are the few terms which are being used in the assurance services being provided by the professionals at number of times. For example, I talk about the due diligence, the negligence, the lack of, I will say the due diligence or the negligence. Same way, how we are maintaining the records, how we are maintaining the working papers, how the evidences are being captured, the confirmations are being received, the physical verification of the stocks or the asset, and then the instances of the frauds. These are the very, very important terms which will see a lot of change because of the digital disruption. Because earlier we are maintaining the reports in a different way, we are maintaining the working papers in a different way. That talk of the definition of the due diligence or the negligence will certainly see a lot of change because of the this kind of a digital disruption which we are witnessing. So what we have to do, that we need to understand the role of the cybersecurity. We need to understand the role of the validation of the data. The data analytics has to be adopted. There is a case when because of the new era which is emerged out because of the COVID-19, the remote audit. So how you will maintain the integrity and the ethical practices when you are doing the remote audit in a remote environment. Then the skepticism in the era of the technology and the non-monetary data. So all these things are there, which are getting a lot of change because of the digital disruption as being witnessed, and the, I will say, elaborated in the webinar being organized. The theme of the topic, the theme of the webinar is about the ethics in the digital environment. So all these aspects are very, very important to deliberate, discuss while you are working in the IT environment, and you have to maintain the highest level of the ethics, because your role is there in the economy as that you are the watchdog of the economy. You are the very, very important catalyst of the growth. So how we will be able to maintain that integrity, ethics, and the excellence in the IT era is something that we need to deliberate, learn, and also relearn. So I used to say that there is always a new age jobs. There is always a new age job, and we need to reskill our skills to adapt, to see that we are relevant in the value system. So what I'm trying to convey, my friends, that in this particular session, we will have the very eminent personality, C.N. Vijay, who will be speaking on these topics, these aspects, that how it is important to understand that technological disruption vis-a-vis the ethical and the integrity and the excellence in the profession, which is the, I will say, the soul or the need of, like, ultimately the foundation of the entire profession. And along with the Neeraj Bhai, who is also having a global exposure, the global experience which he carrying with him, that the combination of these two very eminent personalities will make this session very, very valuable. And I believe that in the times to come, their thoughts will be cherished by all the participants and the readers and the viewers in the coming time. So with this, over to Charmi, and thanks to the Praful sir for giving me this opportunity to say a few words in the initiation of this particular technical session. Thank you.
Thank you, Atul sir. Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. Atul sir, please accept our heartfelt gratitude for enthralling us through your words of wisdom. The journey of 1,000 leagues begins with a single step, and so our next address is on covering international perspective on this topic. We have CA Neeraj Rithulia, who is currently the chairman of ICAI Abu Dhabi chapter, having over 25 years of professional experience and has worked across industries. I request CA Neeraj Rithulia, sir, to address our audience. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Charmi. First of all, let me give my gratitude to CA Prafulla Chatterjee, Chairman of Ethical Standard Board, Alan Johnson, President IFAC, T.N. Manoran sir, former President, Atul Gupta ji, with whom we have worked very closely during his President tenureship, and Mr. Wazir sir. The topic that has been given is the international concept on the ethical challenges. First of all, I would like to say that in digitalization, we eliminate the boundaries. So practically, we don't see any difference between international and national, within national boundaries, any challenges. It is all common. So what I would like to bring here is that one of the ethical challenge involving technology is to figure out what is our ethical position. Ethic is a very complicated topic, and this has been deliberated and discussed by philosophers, religious leaders, ordinary people, and they have been debating it for centuries. Digital piracy, for example, is something where you would never steal a book, physical book, but you don't feel that you're doing anything wrong or doing anything unethical if the pirated book is being downloaded from somewhere without paying to the author. Now, with the invasion of new technology, to have a foolproof ethical society is a big challenge. There should be measures in place to address any unethical activity and to limit the damage to the society. Again, just to give an example, if someone uploads a pirated movie on YouTube, system should flag it and say that, yes, there is something which is wrong here, and it should either block it, block the user, delete it. So there should be something in the system itself to take care and handle this. We cannot run away from technology. I think the key issue is that everyone is going to have to deal with it. You may hate it, but you can't ignore it, and eventually everyone had to adopt it. However, the increasing adoption of technology and growing awareness of various ethical risks associated with it calls for an urgency in designing approaches and mechanism to deal with these risks. Government, technology vendors, corporates, academic institutions, they are already started looking into it and laying the foundation for ethical technology use. At corporate level, company needs to evaluate the impact of new technology on the environment and the communities they deal with. There's also a requirement to assess the compatibility of technology with companies' core values, whether it fits into their mission, vision statement, the core values of the company. Now, creation of an ethics committee within the organization can review it and track the impact of automation. This is again one thing which is very important from corporate side that they should look into. Technology is all about data, and data, as you all know, is new gold. There is a massive personal information available online these days because each and every one of us are using internet for online purchases, social media. We browse internet, even the concept of reading e-magazines, newspapers is so relevant and so prevalent in society these days that most of the time you are on net and where you are exposing your personal details over net to all the users. Now, businesses today are faced with several ethical challenges. We need to ensure that we are protecting personal freedoms and using data appropriately. One of the primary ethical dilemmas is how businesses uses our personal information. Companies gather information to hyper-personalize our personal experience, online experiences. Now, if once you go and buy a particular product, next time when you go to the same site, you will find similar kind of products being flashed when you log in. And this is how companies use our personal information, personal choice to hyper-personalize our requirement. And we need to understand that how these personal information is being used by the corporate actually, and to what extent is that information impeding our privacy, right of privacy. The personal professionals of the future will need to have a bigger and wider skill set, which is beyond technical capability. It is not just ability to understand data, but it is more important to know its limitation. In simple word, ethics is all about human behavior. Alan mentioned something about the culture. It is, again, something similar. I mean, it's about a culture, how we bring it into ourselves. It is about knowing what to do, right things with such information. The scope of our profession needs to be extended, starting right from the design phase of the software development. Personally speaking, no one can implement ethical things on such huge and massive information. It is somehow the software has to take care of these things. And we need to have some audit which needs to be carried out periodically to see whether the design of the program itself poses any threats to ethical issues and whether any checks and controls are in place or not. Today, the information published in digital media are not fully authenticated. As T.N. Manoharan sir said, deep fake. And this is now becoming the major challenge on how you rely on information which is available over net. Now, since this news and the digital media, a lot of informations are available, which nobody knows how authentication process has been taken care of. And many information are fake and misguided. Many websites give ranking to various products and companies. Can we trust it? We don't know. I mean, as soon as you put in something on the search engine, there are a few top things coming up as on the search engine. What transparency level is there? How that is being monitored? Is it just because of usage? So we really don't know what criteria has been fed in to pop up those companies or those products first. I think there should be a consensus among the government beyond geographical boundaries to have certain certification for transparency on these criteria that is used on the website. These are broadly the thoughts on ethics on technology. Now, for CA professionals or the financial professional, many of us are taking care of admin, HR, apart from our regular accounting function as well. And we have to be very careful when we have information, personal information of our clients, our personnel, our staff, our vendors and suppliers. So, for example, in UAE, a CA profession who is like a CFO or a financial controller who happens to handle some of the HR function, he has got many information, sensitive information, like while processing visa, we are required to submit passport details, national ID details. We have to give our mother's maiden name, which is again one of the authentication process in various banks. We have to give some contact details and number in India. Similarly, many personal information are required when we process health insurance data for our staff and employees. We have a lot of supplier and vendor information right up to the ultimate beneficial owner. We hold passport copies of many individual owners who are very high-profile businessmen. So we have to be very cautious and we have to exercise a lot of caution in how this data is kept, how this data is processed, how this data is handled within the organization. We have seen a lot of importance in data protection in UAE, and the law has been implemented here in terms of data protection, where a designated officer is wholly responsible for protecting the data that has been collected from all those what I have just mentioned, and he is liable for fines and penalties for any breach. We need to be super cautious on how to protect this. Generally, when it is electronically stored, we try to keep the information password protected. We have to see that anyone who uses that has signed off a declaration that he won't be misusing it. I mean, just to give an example, being the committee, executive committee of a chapter, we have database of 800 chartered accountants. I mean, their date of birth, sometimes we do ask for their passport details. If we have to submit it to some authorities, we have their phone numbers. It is our responsibility how to protect that information, how to not allow any misuse of those information. We have to be very vigilant that no misinformation is being circulated in relation to our company, and be cautious that any information being available on social media for our stakeholders. Not all informations are correct, but at the same time, we should not ignore all the information that is available there. So we have to process it in a very diligent manner to see that what is important for us and get it verified. New technology always brings benefits and risks. Leaders balances risk and benefit to achieve their goals and fulfill their responsibility to diverse stakeholders. To behave ethically and instill trust in the digital age, finance professionals will need to learn new information relatively quick and to apply their judgment to these information which in a situation which we have not been at many times. So Charlie, that is from my side, and now for Mr. Vas to take the floor.
Thank you, sir. We would like to express a deep sense of gratitude to you, sir, for guiding on the topic and sparing your valuable time with us. Thank you for inspiring hope, igniting the imagination to our participants.
Thank you so much.
So today, participants want to unlock the golden potential that resides within themselves on ethical challenges in emergence of new technology. To embark on the ethical journey to explore ethical provisions, we have today CA Vazesa. To formally introduce him, he is a BCom Fellow Chartered Accountant, Associate Company Secretary, and LLB. He's a practicing chartered accountant for more than 40 years and been actively participant in the work of many professional bodies of chartered accountants. He has delivered lectures and written articles on taxation, banking, allied subjects, and code of ethics. He is the director, ex-chairman of Jan Kalyan Sahakari Bank Limited, and also a member of Board of Studies for the subject of Sanskrit in KJ Somaya College. With this inspiring profile, I request sir to take over the session. So,
before Vajay sir speaks, dear friends, let me tell you, I am witnessing the contribution of Vajay sir, especially in the ethical standards board for last about more than 3 decades now. The people can speak on taxation and all those things, but there are very few people who are actually very deep into this particular subject. And it is really, sir, thank you very much for accepting. I'm sure, little bit we are behind schedule, but the grip which you have on the subject and the methodology in which you deliver, I'm quite sure the participants will be immensely benefited. Thank you so much, sir, for coming. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaskar to all of you. Two great stalwarts in the profession in absentia, Mr. Nihar Jambusarya and Mr. Alan Johnson. Mr. Prafulla Chajed, who has been kind enough to give me this opportunity to participate in this webinar, a very prestigious one. Thank you for his very kind words of praise about me. Mr. Manoharan Saab, before whom I have actually had the occasion and opportunity to plead many disciplinary cases, and I have always found him to be absolutely fair. And of course, about his knowledge and about his oratory skills, there can be no two opinions. Mr. Atul Gupta sir, Mr. Neeraj Ritolia ji, all these stalwarts, in fact, I am feeling that all these stalwarts batsmen have already batted well, and now I am like a night watchman. Well, and I must also mention about Mr. Shankar and Madam Charmi Shah for excellently coordinating with this webinar, and all the ladies and gentlemen who are present to listen to me on this topic of ethical challenges in the emergence of new technology. Let me share the screen. Actually, the topic is so vast. The topic is so vast, and there are two challenges before me. In fact, there is always an ethical dilemma that I have been given 45 minutes time, and at the same time, I have been also been told to finish by 5 o'clock. So now which target to pursue? That's a dilemma for me, and that is an ethical dilemma everywhere. The topic is so vast, and whenever you are required to speak for a very short duration on a vast topic, it is always challenging because that requires more preparation. In fact, Mark Twain once wrote a very longish letter to his friend, and at the end he wrote, "Please excuse me for this long letter because I did not have time to write a short letter." So, well, friends, that's a challenge that I am faced with. So let me straight away enter the subject. As you know, our motto of the institute is Ya Esha Sukteshu Jagarti, which is adopted from Kathopanishad at the recommendation of Maharishi Aurobindo. And that means that one who is awake when the entire world around is asleep. Now, previously, my generation chartered accountants will remember that we used to really keep late hours, sit late in the night, writing the accounts, tallying the trial balance, rectifying, and also doing many things manually, even the calculations. From that era, now we have moved to the technology, and the paradoxical situation is that technology was expected to give some relief to the professional or to any person so that he can do something creative. But on the other hand, it has not only made us a little lazy, but also it has now in a different way, it is keeping us awake. Because as all the previous speakers have almost unanimously stated, that the technological disruption, the technological intervention in our work has become so rampant that now whatever work we have done, one has to be constantly vigilant whether there is any disruption by something like hacking, something like a virus. So in that sense, again, we have to be constantly awake. And that is why the motto is again very apt, Ya Esha Sukteshu Jagarti. So now, with this preliminary thing that we have to be awake always, let me come to the basic three sources of our code of ethics. And those have been adopted from Taittiriya Upanishad. And those are Satyam Vada, that means speak the truth. And all of you know that we are very much concerned with the truth and we have to certify the balance sheet or financial statements to be true and fair. So our profession is very much connected with the truth. Then Dharmam Chara. What is Dharmam Chara? Dharmam is your set of duties. So follow your duties or discharge your duties very religiously. That is the second foundation of our code of ethics. And the third one, Swadhyayat ma pramadha, that means do not commit any default in your continuous studies, that is Swadhyay. All three principles of Taittiriya Upanishad are so aptly applicable even today, which were enshrined at least 10,000 years ago. And Swadhyayat ma viramaha, pramadha, means actually for even technology side, we have to be constantly keeping us update. And the irony of today's time is that when we say Satyam Vada, the irony is that one of the biggest scams in India of a technology company where the auditors were also implicated, its name was Satyam. So it's a big irony in my opinion, but anyway, we have to live with it. Now, there has been often for age-old conflict between Sat and Asat, that means the good and evil, Satya and Asatya, that is truth and untruth or false, Niti and Aniti, that is ethical and unethical. And in this conflict, always one has to be very, very vigilant because it is often seen that it is not that technology is never good or bad in itself, but technology often helps the Asat or the unethical people because they are more proactive. We are in a transition stage, friends. In the transition, as I think Mr. Manoharan also mentioned, last 20 years, the rapid pace of the technology is so much mind-blowing that it is very difficult for any ethical code to keep pace with that. In fact, I can give you a very relevant observation of Honorable Supreme Court about the acceptability of WhatsApp messages as evidence. The Honorable Supreme Court said that there is a section 65B of the Evidence Act, and it also prescribes the methodology or the guidance for relying on the technological or the WhatsApp messages. Now, in that, the Supreme Court has observed that one has to keep pace or one has to catch up with the technology, and they have advised this government of India to modify or amend the law so as to catch up with the technological advances. In fact, it has also expressed a view that despite their saying that WhatsApp messages are not essentially acceptable as evidence, still many high courts are accepting it, and therefore Supreme Court has rather cautioned them to take utmost care in relying on the WhatsApp messages. So this is the intervention of technology which is affecting all professions. It is an all-pervasive thing. It's not the only chartered accountancy profession that we are concerned with, but ultimately all these other professionals also are equally getting affected. Although we say Satyameva Jayate, that is at the ultimate stage. But before that ultimate stage where the Satyam triumphs or the truth triumphs, already lot of damage is done. So with this word of caution, let me now enter the topic again with the technical part of it. The technology, as Mr. Manoharan also mentioned, whether it is a boon or bane, I am not suggesting that technology essentially poses a threat to the ethics. But in reality, the chances are very high. In fact, it is happening, it is seen to be happening very, very rampantly that the technology is disrupting your flow of work and your integrity of the data. And the reason is that those who want to observe ethics, like we chartered accountants, we are lacking strength, we are lacking voice, and we are also lacking the unity. And therefore, we are not united enough and we are not proactive enough to guard against the damages which will be caused by the technology. And on the other hand, the people who are taking undue advantage of the technology are quite united and are quite focused because ultimately they have to achieve their personal self-interest through technology or technological disruption. So technology per se is not good or bad, as I already said. The user makes it good or bad. And the technology is a tool or weapon. So it can be used either for good things or for bad things also. Technology is invading our life and it is also pervading all the professions. For example, in medicine, it is a boon quite often. But at the same time, it has a lot of nice side effects. Just as of chemotherapy is a good example of bad side effects. But at the same time, even in pathology, we find that whatever is shown by the machine, that is reported without application of mind. So the application of mind, the human intervention everywhere for interpretation is now getting replaced by perhaps technology and perhaps by artificial intelligence. So the human aspect of each and every aspect of our work and technology has to be very carefully ensured. Only then our life can really be helped by the technology. Otherwise, it is sure to cause a lot of damages to our lives, and then profession is not an exception. Main worry is that technology is trying to replace, as I said, human intelligence and human mind. And the discretion which any person, a professional should have, is now being rather replaced by the technology. And in what sense it is being replaced, for with what purpose it is being replaced, is a question to be seen. Now, worldwide survey, as I think Mr. Allen perhaps mentioned, that it is the threat to the very existence of certain professions due to the emergence of technology. In fact, there was a worldwide survey, I think perhaps Atul Gupta ji mentioned it, that due to the automation and excessive use of technology, certain professions are going to be obsolete within a decade's time perhaps. And accountancy profession is rather very high on the ladder because most of the accounting functions will be taken care of by the technology. And therefore, this is due to the increasing automation everywhere and the jobs of the accountant. In fact, it was a clear mention that the types of jobs now which will be created will be totally different than those jobs, the nature of jobs that exist today. So this is again a challenge because when your very survival, when your very existence is at stake, naturally there is a tendency to compromise on ethics. That is also a very philosophical thing in Sanskrit, that whenever you are in difficulty, you are likely to compromise on ethics. And where your own existence is being upset or shattered, then there are more than two chances that you might compromise on your ethics. Now, Satyam episode, as you know, ethics are very much concerned with truth, as I mentioned. We have to certify financial statements to be true and fair. Due to technology, recognizing the truth itself is a challenge. Now, everything looks so neat and clean. Earlier, when it was manually done and when there were typewriters, that means one could easily make out which is a genuine product, final product, because there were many versions and on which many manual or handwritten changes used to be made. Now it is everything appears so flawless And there have been very many disciplinary cases which I happen to handle where because of these printouts, quite often in real life, what happens is, friends, the semi-version or semi-final version of the balance sheet, somehow printout is taken and the hard copy is signed on the basis as if it was a final one. And the real final version is something different. And in that sense, many of our members have also been trapped into the disciplinary cases because they were not very vigilant, they were not very awake as to what was the final version of the balance sheet or any document for that matter. Now, we really don't know, we often understand what is true and what is not true. In fact, I'll come to hacking and other things because Satyam stories, I know you are aware that it is too well known to be elaborated, but still a few highlights of that. That Satyam was essentially a technology-based company. Everybody is aware. But ambition and greed of the owner could dupe everyone. Means, in fact, it could dupe customers, it could dupe stakeholders, it could dupe regulators, bankers, and above all, the auditors as well. And therefore, this was happening not for 1 or 2 years, friends. It was happening for a consecutive 10 years' time. And when it was exposed, perhaps a lot of damage has already been done. So this is the effect of technology where a chartered accountancy firm, a very well-known chartered accountancy firm, also got implicated. And that is the real challenge. In fact, many cases are happening where, in fact, I happen to handle one case where there was one disgruntled client, a lady client of a chartered accountant, and she had some friction with him. And so what she did, from his mobile, she created an evidence as if he had sent to her very obscene and dirty messages. And she took the photo of that screen. She approached the police. The poor chartered accountant was behind bars for what was 5 to 6 days. And then he is now still on bail. And then she also took the photograph of the screen of those dirty messages and filed a complaint to the institute about the disciplinary, bringing disrepute to the profession. Now, it was so frightening, friends, that this was referred to the forensic, but every time you cannot approach the forensics. So in the forensic, in fact, I was told that they showed us that they can create an evidence as if from Mr. A's mobile, both Mr. A and B are strangers to them, or Mr. A's mobile, they can create an evidence as if A has sent some message to B, whereas A has not even operated his mobile at all. Now, if this kind of thing happens, then it is a great threat to the integrity, it is a great threat to the ethical standards of our profession. Because one can easily bring anyone in trouble by creating an evidence either by WhatsApp or by SMS or by even email, where it will appear as if it has been sent by somebody to another person, and it can give to very misleading signals. And then, friends, unfortunately, our disciplinary mechanism is such that it takes 3 to 4 years at least for completion of any case or in complaint. That means eventually he may be proved true. That is what I said, ki Satyameva Jayate is an ultimate thing. But he has to undergo the rigmarole, he has to undergo all the stresses for these 3 to 4 years until he is proved that this mischief was not done by him. This is the real challenge, friend, because ultimately that sword of disciplinary action is always hanging on his head. And this is the damage caused by the technology. As I said, the technology causes that damage. Therefore, afterward, there could be a remedy. But that remedy sometimes is too late. Now, one important development is the thought process nowadays. And that is because of the technological invasion, is that the old theory, and this was also mentioned by one of the speakers, that the old theory of auditor is merely a watchdog and not a bloodhound is getting diluted. That is no longer a shelter for us, friends, because your routine tasks, your mundane tasks have been facilitated so much by the technology that now you are expected to focus on the real creative things of audit, which is analogous to investigation. They do recognize that audit is, or assurance is not same as investigation. But at the same time, when it comes to the handling of the disciplinary complaint, that the demarcating line between the audit and investigation has become so thin that ultimately sometimes even the committee he finds it difficult to discern, to rather discriminate between the two. That means audit or assurance, and on the other hand, investigation. And therefore, many people, when the frauds were committed with the help of technology, many of our chartered accountant friends were implicated because they have ultimately resulted or landed up signing a wrong balance sheet. So this is the hazard. This is the challenge to the ethics. That means, as we know, clause 7 of part 1 of second schedule of our Chartered Accountants Act says that if the auditor shows lack of due diligence or gross negligence. Now, even an error sometimes, earlier the high courts were very clear that an error is not a misconduct. Even a blunder is not a misconduct. They have gone to the extent of saying that even negligence is not a misconduct. They said gross negligence. There should be gross negligence, and that means they say that there should be an element of dishonesty or ill motive. Now, these are the observations of the Honorable Calcutta High Court, but that was decades ago. Now, this particular principle may not be available for our rescue today, and this is because of the technology. Another development is that the disciplinary mechanism, as I mentioned, the error and gross negligence, that line is also getting thinner and thinner because they say that now the technology is available, therefore you should be able to concentrate more on the finer aspects of audit because your routine aspects now you are getting a relief. Another change in mindset is that accounts is necessarily an estimate, but due to the modern thinking and whatever are the regulations in the accountancy and accounting standards internationally, in fact, it is being given like a status of something like a physics or a nuclear science. So much of accuracy actually perhaps is not warranted in any accounts. It is essentially an estimate. Take the example of valuation. But now the methods and other things of valuation, they are becoming so dominant that for an average chartered accountant, it is becoming very difficult to keep pace with that. In fact, now I am feeling that every CA firm will have to have a separate technology department, which they can ill afford, but they have to keep the technology department or they have to constantly on a retainer basis hire the services of some technological expert to ensure that the work which they are doing is proper. So that is why the episode like Satyam perhaps could have been avoided had there been a technological expert in between to help or facilitate the auditors. Now, too much of accuracy, as I mentioned to you, is expected now in the accounts. Earlier, the word fair also was given due importance. It is not only true. In fact, we have deviated from the concept of true and correct to true and fair. That fairness of the accounts actually is now rather getting almost vanished, I would say. And they are also focusing more on true and correct in reality. That fairness in the account and in the disciplinary proceedings perhaps is also diminishing because of the domination of the technology. Now, best example, as I mentioned, to valuations, even of stocks and other assets. And due to technology, the room for professional judgment and the human discretion is no longer there. As I mentioned to you in the medicine, the pathology report, when if you are seeing a healthy person before you, but the pathology report is saying something else, perhaps your diagnosis may differ. So that application of human mind, that is now missing, and we are now becoming the slaves of technology. That is the tragedy of it. So falsification is possible easily by deliberately leaving loopholes in the computerized accounting systems. Now, unless you are expert or you are aided by some expert who can detect, because in the ERP products also, there could be a lot of flaws. And if we are not conversant with that, then I think you are sure to invite trouble for yourself. So this ERP system and all these gadgetry and all these new packages, they are otherwise very sweetly worded. They look very nice. It is expected that they will add to the efficiency of the organizations. I wonder whether they really do it. But ultimately, a chartered accountant who is signing the things as a true and fair thing of the financial statements may invite trouble for himself because he is not well versed with the technology and the packages of accounting. So that means one has to be very, in fact, a lot of information system audit and other things have been introduced. But ultimately, chartered accountant has to rely on these, or they can rely on the other outside expert only to a limited extent. There should be some capabilities developed by himself that would ensure that he is also capable of testing the correctness and the efficacy of the products or efficacy of the packages. And fictitious invoices are inserted, bank statements are inserted. In fact, there were very fake emails also that can be sent from some person to another, which can be incriminating in nature. In fact, now we have said the new regulation is that when clause 8 of part 1 of first schedule, which one has to communicate with the previous auditor. Now the email communication is also permitted. But the chartered accountant should be aware that any email ID will not do. Whatever is registered in the ICAI portal, only that should be adopted. Now these are simple things, but otherwise he can just see something on his letterhead of the previous auditor and perhaps he can send it there. Now that may not be in compliance with the ICAI regulation, because ICAI regulation does permit now the email communication to the previous auditor, provided it is on the registered email ID with the institute. Now these are the niceties which one has to understand. Otherwise, it is better and safer to rely on the hard copy letter sent by registered post. That makes you very, very safe. Most funny and ironical part, dear friends, is that despite all this Satyam which was exposed later, the funniest part was that the company had bagged global award, which is Golden Peacock Award. That means it could dupe even the award giving agency or the organization, which is very elite and which is also technologically very sound. So they can fool them. Now, if a company can fool such a big worldwide organization of international repute which gives award for good governance, corporate governance, then who is a chartered accountant? Chartered accountant and average chartered accountant may not be geared up, may not be equipped enough to understand the hazards of this technology. So friends, that one has to keep in mind, and therefore now I have mentioned in a subsequent slide that are now domain knowledge of say taxation, corporate laws, accountancy, all those things will now perhaps become a little secondary, and now we have to focus more on the technology. Now another thing which is being lost sight of is that as that Calcutta High Court decision, that mens rea, something like gross negligence has to be a mental state. But now that mental state, examining whether that was really mental state of, not being, rather working with integrity or doing something deliberately, which is incorrect, whether that needs to be examined, but now they go mechanically that there is an error and therefore perhaps many times they jump to the conclusion that there is a negligence. So this is a threat or this is a challenge to the ethical standard. I will be also dealing very briefly on the specific clauses because I have the paucity of time, but I will be discussing with reference to specific clauses of the schedule. What are the difficulties or what are the challenges which are posed by the technology? Excuse me, I'm adjusting the screen. We can come to the another big scam, as everybody is aware, is the PMC Bank episode. Now in PMC Bank, everybody is aware that a lot of fictitious data was created, a lot of fictitious data was inserted, and the fictitious data was very either masked or it was in a different package altogether. And only the genuine items or genuine accounts were shown to the auditors, internal auditors, statutory auditors, and even the RBI auditors. That means for years together, all these audit agencies were being fooled by the help of technology. And then that is why I said that one has to be now geared up to tackle all such situations. The bogus accounts were either masked, as I mentioned, and this also was possible only due to the technology because they had created a lot of parallel records, different set of accounts with the help of technology. Manually, it is very difficult to create such things. Now, technological frauds and auditing, as you are, I don't think you have to elaborate much on this, but we are having reliance on the systems or the programs that are inaccurately processing the data, or they are perhaps processing the inaccurate data. Because when we are doing online audits, it is very difficult for us to judge whether that whatever other documentation is there, it is very difficult for us to examine its accuracy, its authenticity, and its validity. Therefore, all these limitations are there unless one is aware of all these limitations and one is aware that one has to do something beyond the normal verification of the technology or the screen, then only it is possible for him to detect the validity of the data. So unless that accuracy, authenticity of the data is ensured, we cannot rely what is the result given on merely by the technology. And therefore, inaccurate processing and for inaccurate processing, we have to study the program. Well, unless we know whether it is processing it properly. In fact, there were situations where even on our income tax site, initially when it was introduced, initially there were experiences that whatever returns you are uploading, whatever was reaching the IT site was something different. And therefore, there were many tax demands which arose because the data which was actually got uploaded there, although you might have punched it correctly, there it was something different. Now, this was a universal problem all over country. Therefore, subsequently, it was sorted out. But when it comes to only one client and auditor relationship, in that perhaps such things may not protect you, and because apparently it will be seen that what you are signing is not proper. So, this unauthorized access, next danger or next risk is that the unauthorized access to the data that might result in destruction of the data and improper changes to be made. Quite often, there are multiple accesses. So if multiple users are working on the same package and they are accessing it from different places, and if there is no coordination between them, that also creates a lot of hazards. So the including recording of, I can say, unauthorized or non-existent transactions also can take place. In fact, there were fake invoices, as you know, in that Satyam Corporation, fake invoices were inserted and inaccurate recording of transactions was done. So if one has to be really vigilant as to whether the correct data is getting inserted, only then you can, otherwise all of us know garbage in, garbage out. So if you are not feeding the data correctly, probably there could be a lot of danger. I'm just watchful on the time. The unauthorized or erroneous changes to data or even to the master file. So in the master file also sometimes the erroneous changes could be made, and that will perhaps mislead any person who is checking it. Unauthorized changes to systems, that means the locking arrangement also that auditor should be familiar with. Otherwise, whatever data is given to him today, tomorrow it can be manipulated. And he doesn't know whether, unless he has locked it properly, one doesn't know whether what changes have been effected in that. Unauthorized changes in the systems or programs can happen. Then failure to make necessary and appropriate changes in the systems or programs. Then inappropriate manual intervention. As I mentioned to you, if there are many people who are accessing and working on the same data from different places, probably the inappropriate intervention could be there. Then potential loss of data also could be there, because if there is no proper coordination and the data integrity is not secured, then perhaps it is very risky. And the risks introduced by using third-party service providers. This is another challenge, because there are quite often third-party service providers and they are getting access to the data, perhaps more than what is warranted. But the organization of which the accounts are being maintained, they may not be having the know-how to secure or to protect their data, and therefore the outsider agency who is providing that service is capable of using or misusing that data because the access is given to them. And the cyber security risks, now there were cyber attacks on some cooperative banks, of which some 95 crores of the money from different accounts were stolen away. So then key steps in the technology environment I mentioned, but now I think considering the time constraint, let me come to the more relevant and more topical thing, which is happening in day-to-day life. This RT-PCR, for example, friends. Now there is a big scandal because in RT-PCR, all the reports are created by the help of technology, and all the regulators are getting fooled by this because it is very easy to create some fake certificate. So also tracking of devices like mobile phones and all, this is very easily possible, and which may lead to data being leaked out. The computer, laptops and everything can be hacked. There can be a virus into it. Then cyber crimes are also on the increase everywhere, and the phone tapping can also be done. So all these things are there. Artificial intelligence, about which a lot of things have already been talked about. Therefore, I'm just running through. I'm going to the more specific thing as code of ethics, which I am more concerned with. That instead of talking in general, now I'm more on specifics. That means what are the clauses of the code of ethics? That means Schedule 1 and 2 especially, which can be more affected by the use of technology. You know, clause 7 of part 1 of first schedule, which is advertising. Now you cannot advertise your professional attainments, you cannot advertise your professional services. But then I can create an evidence as if Mr. A, who is a chartered accountant, has circulated some circular, or rather some communication in general, which is describing or which is advertising his professional attainment and services. I can create an evidence to that effect. In fact, even without technology, there were instances which I had tackled that the chartered accountant was really innocent and somebody played a mischief and they indirectly, without his knowledge and consent, advertised his attainments. And in fact, 2 or 3 cases were handled by me there, which was very, very interesting, in the sense that when the non-resident taxation was newly some provisions were added, like 1/6 category under section 139. That time, one chartered accountant was invited at Abu Dhabi to speak and update the non-residents over there on the new provisions under the Indian Income Tax Act. And the local friend over there, his friend who invited him, he was not a CA. He gave a newspaper publicity to this chartered accountant's arrival there, and he said he's an expert in the non-resident taxation. He will solve all your queries. Now, this poor chartered accountant was not even aware that he had made such kind of advertisement. Now, if that can be done even in a manual situation or manual environment, then in technology it is very easily possible. So, hacking of social media account and other things, that is an rather offshoot of this. Then clause 11, part 1 of the first schedule, that means you are engaging in business or occupation other than chartered accountancy without the permission of the council. Now here also one can create an evidence with the help of technology that some chartered accountant is engaged in some business and he is advertising that business, and that is a double jeopardy. That first is advertising, and secondly also that I'm creating an evidence that if he is doing the business. And this kind of case also I had an occasion to tackle. So I'm not talking in the air. All these cases have actually happened, and therefore I have the close witness to all these things happening. Then signing of accounts under the CA Act, where you can say that the person not being a member of the institute allows, rather he is authorized to sign, and somebody, because of easily it is possible to manipulate. Even the digital signature is another hazard. In fact, digital signature, we are into transition period, friends. Therefore, even all chartered accountants who are of senior age perhaps are not able to cope up with this changing technology. So at the same time, they cannot discontinue their practice because that is their livelihood. And in that scenario, perhaps the use of digital signature, with the chartered accountants who are not well versed with the use of technology and the gadgets, may find it very difficult that this is happening the other way around also. Under the Information Technology Act, all of us have experienced that the client's signature, the director's signature, digital signature was it was alleged to be misused by the chartered accountant, because it was probably given for him to authenticate and upload the balance sheet. But then it was also used by the co-directors in inappropriate and false allotment of shares to themselves, so that the other person got into minority shareholding. So these hazards are also happening, and therefore the digital signatures being protected very, very cautiously and very, very carefully has become very imperative. And so that is another thing, because these are all practical situations which are arising. then bringing disrepute to the profession, which is clause 2 of part 4 of first schedule. Now, as I mentioned to you, that I can create some evidence of a chartered accountant causing some disrepute or bringing disrepute to the profession by doing rather some strange things on his social media, on his WhatsApp, on his Facebook or anywhere. And the hacking of mobile is also, as I mentioned to you. So I can create evidence. Now it will be very difficult for the disciplinary mechanism to discern here what is true and what is false. Everything has to be then referred to the forensics, which is not practicable. So if there's forensic studies, forensic support should be available, because there are false signatures, false use of the digital signatures, improper use of the digital signatures. The stealing the client's data is also there by using the pen drive and other. That means divulging or disclosing the secrets of the clients or the information of the client in a non-authorized manner to anyone without the consent of the client, or unless there is some compulsion by some law or regulation. So this is also, there's a professional misconduct on that, and I can create an evidence as if some chartered accountant has disclosed this information in the digital mode. That is another thing. Then does not exercise diligence. I think a lot of things have already been spoken about this, that there could be a chance that if you are not vigilant enough, then the data tracking and other things, which the software, unless you are not very familiar with, you are likely to end up signing wrong financial statements or wrong certificates, and what you intended to sign was something different, but what finally transpired, what came out from the computer printer was something different. So this is another hazard, this is another challenge, and therefore I think I have to honor the commitment of time. So in conclusion, I can say that it may eventually happen that the chartered accountants, instead of rather their domain knowledge of company law, audit and taxation may become rather secondary, and they have to gear up and they have to build up specific division in their office for technological upgradation, and they have to upgrade more and more into technological aspect. To only will ensure that whatever data they are processing and certifying is true and fair. Then very knowledgeable chartered accountants may become, although if they are not conversant with the technology, they may become rather outdated, because they cannot function effectively in the new technology era. So that is another thing. Then artificial intelligence, which again most of the speakers mentioned about it, that artificial intelligence, which has replaced the discretions of the auditor, and wrongdoers intelligently are taking undue advantage of the technology. So therefore, all the hazards are there, and our predicament is that we have to certify all these things, and without knowing the technology and without knowing the capabilities, rather damaging capabilities, negative and positive capabilities of technology, we will be very, very in deep trouble. And therefore, these, according to me, are the ethical challenges. As I mentioned, the topic is very vast, and therefore it will take a lot of time to deal with each and every aspect of it. But I thank the Ethical Standard Board, especially Mr. Praful Chajed, for giving me this, for recommending my name. And I also thank all the co-speakers, because I got the opportunity and privilege to share the dais with them, and also the coordinators. And I thank you very much, and wish that technology does not intervene or does not cause damage to any of our members, chartered accountants. I pray that let technology remain in its own controlled sphere, and it should not eat our own professional abilities, and they should not overtake us. That is the message, and one has to be guarded against it very, very cautiously. And thank you very much. Dhanyavad and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir. Start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you are doing the impossible. So for those of us for whom this topic was very difficult to understand and to predict, sir has taken the session very nicely and make us understand each and every aspects of ethics. Sir, the way you have taken the topic is highly commendable. I, on behalf of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and Ethical Standard Board, take the pleasure to thank you for your valuable insights that you shared with our participants today.
धन्यवाद. Thank you.
As all good things comes to an end, so must this evening, but only to pave way for a better one in future. Till we meet again, let us hope that this year proves to be prosperous and fulfilling for each of us as we keep setting our benchmarks higher. Let us pledge for a magnificent future progress for the country led by some of our very own members. On this note, I, CHR Misha, sign off for the day, wishing you all a great week ahead. Thank you and namaste. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.